What if these things can read our minds?
This is a safe sex zone.
Simple, beautiful fish.
Good night, campers.
Turn on, tune in, talk movies. Welcome to the Video Cult.
It's corn pizza, it's killer robots, it's chewing gum at the furniture store orgy. Welcome to the Video Cult.
Jesus. What's that?
Robot blood.
Welcome to our inaugural episode about exploitation cinema from around the world. Well, right now, just right next door to us in the USA. I'm Josh Carmody, and I'm joined by Nathan Stone.
Hello, everybody.
And this is something we've wanted to do for a little bit now. I can't remember when we first brought up the idea. I think it would have been you first.
Yeah, it was last year at some point. I can't tell exactly when. Both Josh and I we're done now, students in a media production program at our local college. And we realized that we both had a little bit in common in terms of our love of a very particular type of cinema, really. That you said it in exploitation films. People call them B movies. People call them bad movies. Those people are wrong. But it's really a wonderful little genre of film. And you kind of had the basis for this idea in a class that we took that required us to make podcasts. You kind of did a pilot version of this.
I did. The focus on it was on Canadian exploitation films, which I realized when we decided to branch out was a little limiting because the basis was that we'd really get interviews every time, and that's just not feasible for us starting out. But the first episode was about Kids versus Aliens. I talked to one of the main props people from that movie. She's a friend of mine. And I guarantee you we'll get her on and we'll talk about that movie again to kind of redo that, to do just Evil Dead 2, the shit out of it, and redo it, which I think will be really fun. But yeah, that's really where we're at. We took a media course. We're two white guys with microphones, and we thought we were qualified. So let's...
we're basically the perfect podcasters.
Exactly. Yeah. We fit the mold.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's funny. We're recording in my apartment, which is very, very small. And this happened to be the first time that I've heard what sounds sound like in my hallway because usually when I leave, everything shuts off. So I had the bathroom fan on and I was out in the hallway and I could hear the bathroom fan pretty much all the way to the front door of the apartment. And it's now made me realize that I have a very intimate relationship with some people in this apartment, considering what they may or may not have heard come out of my bathroom. So that's a whole new thing I get to worry about now. What's going on new in your life, Nathan?
Well, to speak to the intimacy of apartment living, I've lived in apartments most of my life. It really is the kind of thing where it bothers you for about a day, and then you kind of shrug and you're just like, you know what? Whatever. They get to hear some stuff. I get to hear some stuff. It's fine. And I have the same experience with my neighbors. We have a neighbor on one side of our apartment and they change every year, right? It's usually students. And oh boy, man, the things that you hear sometimes just being on the other side of the walls, our walls are like tissue paper thin. So you find some interesting discussions about certain preferences, certain things that I'm sure are meant to be private conversations, but certainly are not. For myself, I'm filming some workout videos recently for a friend / client of mine. This is part of our work terms, just finishing off our school program, and that's been a lot of fun. It's kind of weird to be that shooter for a fitness video because all I'm thinking about the whole time is just like the lighting and, the composition and stuff. And meanwhile, I'm just there and I'm just like, I just filmed like 5 minutes of ass.
I was about to ask. I was like, just okay. And I'm centered on your ass. Yeah. Go do the workout.
Ass and crotch shots, man. It's the bread and butter, I guess, of the industry. But it's been a lot of fun. It really has, and it's very cool.
That's funny. I'm getting into my work term soon. I went and I spoke with them yesterday, so it's sort of it's more sporadic. It is a lot of kind of dry stuff of filming maybe some press conferences and some other things. But I know for 5 days they're paying me to go away to film all the other NSCC graduations. So that's our college. So I have to not only go to my own graduation and listen to someone essentially read from a phone book while a parade of people I've never met before in my life march by. I get to do that 5 other times and stay in a hotel room with a man I've never met before.
Oh boy.
So it's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah. That's an experience.
Yeah. So that's really all I've got going on right now. But something we both have in common is that we both watched the 1985 classic Chopping Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Chopping Mall came out in March of 1985, originally under the title of Killbots, and it did not do very well. And they chalked that up a little bit to the poster was different. The poster most people will see is of a metal hand that makes no appearance in the film, holding a shopping bag with like body parts or something sticking out of it or bleeding. I think the original poster was more of what the actual robots look like in the film that are not particularly menacing.
They are not.
And it was 20 minutes longer. So they pulled it from theaters after a little bit. They cut 20 minutes out, which gives us our now very crisp and quick runtime of 78 minutes.
Yeah.
And retitled it Chopping Mall. And I, having not seen the extra 19 minutes, I think it was the right choice.
See, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. And for me, the length of this movie is perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It is everything I want from this story, from this cast, from everything in a, as you say, very crisp 78 minutes. And I didn't feel like I was robbed of anything.
No, there's nothing wasted. And when I looked at what some of the cutscenes might be, because there's both claims of this original version that was 20 minutes longer and a TV version, which I assume is maybe not necessarily much longer, but does have some of those scenes added back in. Because there's a couple times it's bloody. They maybe couldn't get away with it on TV, but for the most part, the deaths are not particularly violent, except for one of them that we'll get to. Yeah, I feel some of those are similar cutscenes, and a lot of it is early stuff in the furniture store and characters talking to each other and stuff that just really isn't needed at all. I feel there's really nothing wasted. And again, when you have those kind of extra scenes, the longer version of this movie maybe took itself a little more seriously. And I think this movie not taking itself seriously and embracing that the robots are basically murderous Johnny Fives is better for it, because if it tried to take itself too seriously, like any other slasher, it's got a lot of slasher moves in it. If it was too serious, I don't think it would be any good. And I think it straddles a nice line.
It really does for me. And we'll find out during this synopsis, but I love this movie. I love every part of this movie. It is an absolute joy to watch. And the idea of it trying to be serious can't work for me. It can't, because it does such a good job of being silly and fun and just a good time. So this is really interesting, because I'm a little bit more of a novice when it comes to these types of movies. We've had this conversation, you and I, in private, but you love, you're a nerd for these types of movies, right? You love deep diving, those kind of things.
I lived as a kid, like a young teenager, probably when I was in junior high, when I first started kind of getting into B movies, bad movies, exploitation. I think watching stuff like kind of in that ironic sense to kind of see something try and fail or try and be very different. I lived on IMDb because I couldn't just go and rent anything. A lot of the video stores in this city were kind of corporate ones like Blockbuster, and they didn't always have kind of older, weirder stuff. There was no YouTube. There was no trailers. Mm-hmm. Like occasionally IMDb would have trailers for things. Like I remember the Jaws ripoff Grizzly was like a holy grail for me for years and years and years, because I just only ever heard people talk about this movie where a bear gets blown up with a rocket launcher. And like, it's just old people on forums like telling me like, hey, trust me, bro. So that really is where that came from. That there's a lot of movies that I haven't even seen. I just know a lot about because of that time I spent at IMDb just going through the trivia, the production stuff, and finding out as much as I could before then. Oh, like finding it like at a Jumbo Video in Charlottetown, PEI, you know.
Yeah. And I love that about you, where you really have this passion for it. For me, I'm just kind of, I don't want to say I'm a baby, I'm a beginner. I've always loved these movies. I grew up on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, me as well.
And
oh, yeah.
So that really colored my taste in films, in comedy, in a lot of things. but I've always just been an enjoyer, right? I haven't done these deep dives, so I'm very excited to kind of get into the nitty gritty of this with you and kind of be a little bit of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kid again, just being like, oh, really? Like,
oh, yeah. We got some of that here today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So I believe we open on a diegetic commercial.
Yes.
For the not killer robots, very supposed to be passive security robots. The future that Google wants for us, being happening in a Los Angeles mall. And I love that commercial. It reminds me of the commercials from like RoboCop, that almost satirical kind of Reagan era commercial kind of thing. And I enjoyed that.
It hit me very much as a RoboCop-esque type of bit there. I love this guy who has somehow managed to not only break into this mall, but break into a jewelry store in this mall at some point. I love that we know that he is a ne'er-do-well because his white shirt is just filthy. Filthy there. And you can always tell.
And after breaking into the jewelry store, is just strolling through the mall as if he's already escaped.
Very casually, just So I want to ask, because we get our first real look at our protectors, right? What was your first impressions?
I do love this level of special effects, and I don't think it needed to be much more. It's quite a bit of special effects. Later on, they shoot lasers, and that's pretty much the only added thing. Everything else that they do is being remote controlled by the special effects team, and they're built out of like. The frames are like old wheelchairs, and they had some other conveyor belt pieces, I think, from a grocery store is like kind of what makes up the treads. So they are really fun. Oh, and then they have like the claws,
the Vinci claws,
which is literally just a reaching claw, like for kids. But and it's so funny seeing that being used so like dramatically that it can like kill people. And then also has like the fucking grappling hook on that little string, and I was like, I had a Batman toy as a kid that very clearly had the same level of technology. I was like, that string's not giving much pull or force or anything. So, but yeah, I do like them. But what I said before, they're very silly, they're campy, and so the movie does a good job of having them be campy. They've kind of got a bit of a personality, and that happens later where they'll look at each other and stuff, and I enjoy that about it. So. I think the movie knows what they're working with and doesn't try to go too far, whereas some other movies with robots, I don't know if you ever saw the Tom Selleck classic Runaway. The Tom Selleck movie Runaway. It's like written or directed by Michael Crichton, and Tom Selleck is a robot cop in the future, but all robots look like Roombas, and they're like turning violent, so he's just fighting violent Roombas the whole time. So like that movie really thinks the robots are scary. And they are not. So like, it's kind of that. It really is like an exchange of tone that, the movie knows what it's working with. And in that they have character and I think they fit and I like them. Yeah.
When I first watched it a while back, I was blown away by the fact that they're kind of small. They're not large. They go up to maybe hip height on most of the characters. But I think that really lends to that comedic aspect to them, right? They just kind of trundle up to you, sometimes with no sound whatsoever. The number of times they sneak up on characters in this movie is wild.
Despite the rest of the time making shitloads of sound.
Just so much noise. They can't turn their heads without the loudest servo you've ever heard. But they do excellent job. And I'm so glad you mentioned the characterization. These little guys have so much character, and it makes the movie so much better. The little things that they do with them, the little head turns, we'll get to it when they start killing people, but just some of the things that they do throughout this movie are fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, so then after our diegetic commercial, we are then in the mall, where we see that this has been like kind of... Well, and I'm not sure, because the mall seems to have already bought them, so it's not... a sales pitch. I guess it's like an introduction to them. They've already bought it. I guess this is them showing up to set it up. So we have this guy who I thought was, the first time I saw this movie, I thought this scientist guy was for sure going to come back and be like, there's a flaw in the program or something. No, never comes back again. This guy, like, beautiful 80s hair, just does is the scientist is just like, they're not killer robots. They're only for defense. They do have lasers and plastic explosives, but only to clear debris, which I think is hilarious. Like, even if they didn't go nuts, that's a really crazy thing to have. So we're watching this sort of demonstration, and we get our first Roger Corman throwback, of which there are many throughout this movie, because this is Roger Corman produced. More so, it's Julie Corman, it's his wife. So she had a deal with Vestron, and Vestron, if Jesus Christ, if you want a good list of movies that probably will never let you down, Vestron Video is definitely one of the companies that will do that for you. So she had a deal with Vestron. Jim Wynorski, the director, he really wanted to do more work with Corman. I think at this point he already had, I think we see other posters of his in this movie. So he just wanted more work with Corman, but Julie Corman was the one who had the final say. So it's more her movie. And I think specifically she had a deal with Vestron to make a movie set in a mall. And so that was like, and Jim Wynorski had been wanting to make a Phantom of the Mall, his words, type movie, and that's sort of what brought them all together.
When I read that, I thought of the idea of doing almost a one for one of Phantom of the Opera, but in the mall, right?
It exists.
Having around.
It already exists.
Oh no!
It's called Phantom of the Mall: Eric's Revenge, and guess who's in it? Pauly Shore.
Oh my god!
It has one of the best ending songs I've ever heard, but it has words in it that I don't think our modern audience wants me to repeat. So just look up that movie and its ending credit song. But it's called Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. I think it's from 1989, right before Pauly Shore got like his own movies. He was just like an MTV VJ. So yes, already exists. I'm sorry to tell you.
No, I'm happy to know that. It's going on the list. Fantastic. I did enjoy that the exposition dump of this movie came early, and it just like, here's all the things we're going to be showing you throughout the film, right?
It's just Chekhov's gun after Chekhov's gun. Yeah. And then they don't ever have to do that again. And that, again, gives to the leanness of this movie that we don't have. The main characters never have a, like, oh, we found a manual. Oh, we have to re-explain everything from the beginning of the movie. They're almost always kind of lost, and the robots are able to kind of one-up them as a result of that. So there's never any re-exposition dump, which is good. So yeah, like all right up front, true 80s fashion. It's all like a weird sales pitch kind of thing. But yes, I went off track. Our first Corman reference is the couple that's talking about the robots, where they say that they want to bring one of the robots to their restaurant to deal with people that they don't like. They're from a movie that I've not seen called Eating Raoul. It's about cannibalism to some degree. And I believe the Raoul character is played by Robert Beltran, or Beltram, I can't remember. I think it's Beltran. He plays Chakotay on Star Trek Voyager. So he's Raoul in the titular eating Raoul. And it's some sort of restaurant cannibal movie from 1982. So those two characters are from that movie. And they give us one of the greatest lines in cinema history. The middle robot has an
unpleasantly ethnic quality.
Which, all three of them look identical and nothing like a human. So I was fascinated with that line.
That line plus the camera lingering lovingly over those two in a couple of shots made me look it up. So I did have that piece of trivia written down, and I do want to see that movie now, but because the synopsis sounds a little wild. But that line was it was apropos of nothing, and it was so beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's one of those. It's like Roadhouse when Buddy says, "I used to fuck guys like you in prison." It's like it just comes out of nowhere, and then it stays with you. But yeah, so that kind of gives us all of our setup. Like I said, our Chekhov's guns. We learn everything we need to learn about the robots and their capabilities. That they don't go into the individual stores; they're only there at nighttime. And so that's where we're set up. And then we move.
We can't forget one important thing: the giant blast doors that close off the mall between 10 and 6.
I don't know why I forgot about that, but on this watch, it was especially alarming because, and I guess it's because there's no, to go back to RoboCop, there's no evidence that this is taking place in a world where crime is so rampant. We need robots with with sleeping darts to take out criminals. It seems just like normal 80s LA, which I guess is a little rough, but like I don't know. It seems ridiculous.
This was the most white bread mall I've ever seen. And the next scene, the montage, sets this up for us.
Yeah, I think we could look up where it is. It's the Sherman Oaks Galleria. I don't know where that is.
It was in California. Yeah,
it's in California, but I don't know if it's really LA. It seems more like a valley mall, which would say it's probably not a crime-ridden area. They wanted to film at the Beverly Center, but the Beverly Center was too much money. So they filmed at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which is the same one from Commando. And they were filming around the same time, but Commando would film during the day because they had more budget and there'd be people there. And they only had enough money to film at night when there wasn't people there. Except for a security guard who was really... The head of security was like very on them about the explosions and things they were doing in the mall all the time. So, but yes, the giant blast doors, which were so ridiculous... Giant, like, metal doors slamming shut.
They bought them surplus from the Death Star, these things. They're absolutely wild, yeah. But I love that, because as soon as you see that, like, oh, okay, there's no getting out of this mall, right? Yeah. Like, it's another one of those things that they set up so beautifully that would only go wrong in this particular scenario.
Yes, exactly. And also in a TV movie that they're often accused of stealing the premise of, where people get locked into a mall, but instead of robots, it's like teams of vicious killer Dobermans. From 1973, it's called Trapped. So I've not seen it, but apparently it's like that. So I don't know. There's other more interesting movies about Dobermans that can be watched. So then we start meeting our other characters, and I'm trying to remember all of their names because it just leaves. I think our main character's name is Allison, and she's played by Kelly Maroney.
Yes.
And they work at a pizza place.
Yeah, her and Susie work at the pizza place.
So her and Susie work at the pizza place in the mall. I didn't catch the name of this pizza place, but I did see later in the movie there's a pizza place called Licorice Pizza, and I don't know if that's the same one. And like, we can get into a lot of the names of the stores.
Yeah, no, that was its own thing. The one at the beginning, I'm trying to remember the name, but it's not coming to me. But it was definitely a unique. Yeah. Yeah.
So in here again, we get more of our Roger Corman and Jim Wynorski references. The movie posters that are all on the wall. I think there's Lost Kingdom, Galaxy of Terror, which we're definitely going to do. Slumber Party Massacre. These are all Roger Corman joints. I think Jim Wynorski might have even directed Galaxy of Terror. Sorceress is another one. We don't fully see the poster for Sorceress, but it's like the tiger with wings. That's for Sorceress.
Yeah, it's a manticore because I'm a big nerd. It's a manticore, and honestly, I paused that movie because I had never seen Sorceress. I was just like, is this a motivational poster? Because I'm thinking like he's in a store, like this should be a motivational poster. It's like work hard, like hang in there kind of thing. So I went down a Google rabbit hole to finally come to Sorceress and finally find this poster, because it was driving me absolutely out of my mind. And I watched the trailer for Sorceress. Seems like a lot of fun.
It's in that Darkstalker vein. There's so many of those, like Sword and Sandal from that era.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, one that's worth it. Yeah, Sorceress. So we get a lot of that, and then we also get something that has been infinitely fascinating to me since I first saw that movie, and that's corn pizza. Susie drops a slice of pizza on the floor that she's supposed to be serving because she's working in this restaurant, and that pizza hits the floor, and so much like niblets of yellow corn go everywhere. And I was like, I originally thought when I first saw it, I was like, okay, maybe they wanted it to look as sloppy and messy as possible. Mm-hmm. So they were like, just put something on it, put something on the plate so that it kind of gets everywhere. No, I looked it up. I don't know all the history of it because I don't have the time to read those 4,000 word biographies that come before online recipes. But I found a number of online recipes for corn pizza. It seems to be one of those like American Midwest things, like where you
sounds
just
like a
mix
Midwestern,
shit with Jello or make way too sweet. You mix fluff into stuff. Like it just seems like one of those weird things of just bored housewives.
Yeah.
Thing. But it really is a true bastardization of an Italian art form.
It is very unfortunate. See, I like corn. I like corn a lot. Like pizza a lot. Yep. Please don't put corn on my pizza. That's all I ask.
No, definitely not. And in meeting some of our characters, we start to get some of our first questions, which is, how fucking old are these people? Because as we go through the gamut, there's 8 main characters. that we start to meet. We meet Allison and Susie working at the pizza place.
Yeah.
Greg and Ferdy, who work at the furniture store.
Yeah, and Mike.
And Mike works at the furniture store as well. And then we have Mike's girlfriend, who I'm gonna forget everyone's name. She works at a clothing store.
Yeah.
So Leslie works at a clothing store, and then we have a married couple.
Yeah,
again,
Linda and Rick.
And then we have Linda and Rick. They all seemingly are running the gamut of problems for people that are both 16 and 29.
Yeah. And my head when I first watched this film, and then it had been a little while, and I had kind of just been like, oh, it was all teenagers having sexy times at a mall. They run into robots.
But it's
not. It's not that at all.
Mike goes to meet
meet Leslie's father.
Yeah,
he runs into her father.
Leslie's working at her clothing store job. It looks like H&M, but it's not. The logo is very similar to H&M, but it's not. It's all whatever it is. And her dad's there, and I definitely made a note about that because I said the dad looks like a villain from a movie where the heroes ride BMX bikes. This guy's from a completely different movie. Yeah. And again, much like the scientist, never shows up again. He's like there to be a 30-second antagonist.
Yeah, that scene was really like, there's not almost any fat to this movie. And that scene was a weird one for me because I did expect him to come back at some point, and it's just not a problem. He's gone.
Yeah,
it's
again, like
seconds.
the scientist, I figured we would start to get some C plot of people trying to get into the mall. Mm-hmm. Something like that, I thought. But no, and when Mike is there, he's like, he's all like nervous, like, I can't let him know that I'm going to be spending the evening with his daughter. And I'm like, you guys are in your mid-20s or something. But it's a very teenage problem. Mm-hmm. So, and again, the problem of 80s movies casting much older people to play younger people. I can't pinpoint it. It seems like he's trying to cover up because Leslie's like, oh, well, I'm going to this birthday party. What they're actually doing is they're staying inside the mall overnight in the furniture store to essentially have an orgy.
That's kind of it. I mean, it's kind of a weird one because we'll get to the furniture store scene, but I'm not sure. Like the plan here, this party plan was a little bizarre. They're not really swinging. They're kind of monogamously sleeping,
having sex within
near each
8 feet of each other.
Yeah,
which I thought was so funny. It seems like a weird comfortability for people to have, especially when you start considering the interactions with each other. So and
also two of these people are on their first date. It's a blind first date.
Oh yes, two other people on the first date. So, and that's our main
protagonist,
character, Allison and Ferdy are the two are sort of the nerdy ones or whatever. And the thing about that is that they're on a first date. They don't have sex. Allison, here's a good behind the scenes story, and this is where we get two different versions of a story from our two creators. So we have Jim Wynorski, who is director and one of the writers. And we have Steve Mitchell. So Steve Mitchell says that they originally hired another actress. She was on Airwolf. I forget her name, but they originally hired the actress from Airwolf. She was going to be Allison. And when she told them, she was like, look, I don't want to do any like sex things or be naked in the movie. Jim Wynorski was just like, nah, she's out. Let's get this Kelly Maroney girl. I worked with her in another movie. She's up for anything. Spoiler alert. Kelly Maroney barely takes her like cardigan off. She kisses a dude, and that's about it. She never does any sexual shit. Yeah, the 100% the most dressed. Never gets naked. Never really does any of that stuff. So the other person being fired makes no sense. And then we get Jim Wynorski's version of it. Was not that the other person was fired to replace her for not doing the sex stuff. He wanted Kelly Maroney because he wanted to date her. So he just wanted to date Kelly Maroney. So I'm wondering if the sex things that he's talking about were off camera, which is upsetting in its own way. But there's a little trivia for you.
Fantastic.
So we meet all of our people. We also get,
before we meet everyone though, we do get the lightning storm. Because that is directly follows our two leading ladies in the pizzeria. We get the completely no rain lightning storm.
Yeah. It's Los Angeles. It can't rain.
Oh, it can't rain. That's true. That's it's a fair point.
But yeah, so we have a lightning storm. So they effectively become psychopathic robots the same way that Johnny Five becomes good. It's just the reverse.
Yeah. So it's like an antenna tower almost, or their control node on the top of the building that gets struck by lightning like 4 times. There's a bunch of lightning strikes, and and then you kind of see them come to life. It gave me a little bit of Frankenstein vibes with it, like just because before that you don't really get to see any of their personality, but then it's kind of as soon as they boot up here. You get them kind of looking
they're
around,
all knowing, like they
they're
kind of
just
look at
like,
each other and they're like,
hey.
"How about we fuck some shit up?"
let's do murder.
So there's sort of this like control room, like security area with a bunch of like typical looking science fiction computer shit. It looks like a leftover room that they cut from War Games or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who's the technician for the robots that's supposed to be there during the day. And he's in a lab coat. And the guy who also works with him is in a lab coat. And I couldn't make heads or tails of that because they're not doing anything that constitutes a lab coat. It's just one of these funny, like, oh, they're scientists. They have to have lab coats on.
Clearly, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out because I didn't even realize it. My brain just was like, yeah, check the boxes here. Does science has lab coat?
Yeah.
Checks
Perfect.
out.
And then is he reading a newspaper or like a nudie magazine? I can't
So
remember
he's
what
the
he was
first of
looking
them is reading. Yeah, he's reading a nudie magazine because it's got like the fold out.
at. Okay, because he does the fold out, and then the robot claw bursts through the fold out and murders him.
So one of the fun things that I noticed, and this was kind of on the second watch through that I did, was this movie really does conform to that slasher trope of if you have sex or are involved with sex in some way, you're going to die. Because spoiler alert, most of these people die in this movie.
Yeah.
And this guy is the first of it, and he's looking at his topless model, and the claw gets him. Honestly, though, my favorite part of that scene is just before that, where you have Protector 1 in front here, and he just looks at the other two, and he just looks at them like, hey guys, watch me absolutely destroy this man, right? Like he's just like, you want to see this? You're going to see what I'm going to do.
They say
to him.
so much with saying nothing.
They
at
really
all.
do, yeah. Fantastic. And so yeah, that's our first death. That's where we're things are starting to pick up. Also, just at this point in the movie was when I noticed that I loved the soundtrack to this movie.
Oh, it's like kind of it's and there's a lot of times this happens in these movies because everyone could get their hands on a synthesizer. But it's always this like diet John Carpenter kind of soundtrack. But this is one of the better ones. This like main song, I'm pretty like that comes.
It comes through a lot of the robot chase themes.
It's been re-released like a number of times on vinyl. I think by that composer. I might have the Chuck Cyrano. I think I have that here as the music by. So I'd say that's who it is. And this is and of course Roger Corman. You got to recycle things. He used this for Deathstalker 2 as well. So the song is repurposed at least one other time that I found. I've not watched through all of the Deathstalker series. It's certainly what one would describe a series of sequels with diminishing results. But yeah, a lot of great music in that John Carpenter vein. I also noticed that as well. That I was a big fan of it. And again, yeah. So we kind of meet all of the 8 people.
Yeah.
And I think now analyzing this, you start to realize where a lot of those cuts were made. That I think it's a lot of this setting people up and. You're not sure who's going to die because of how much backstory is probably given because we're still getting a lot. We still get a lot of like backstory and like people are kind of looking forward to things. And that's kind of the trick in movies like this to make you either feel something or think they're going to make it out because they're setting things up that eventually will be thrown aside because they get murdered.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of our cutscenes probably come from here.
I'm kind of glad though because the scene that's after the technician murder scene is you meet the boys, right? You meet the boys in the furniture store. Yeah. And this was for me the most kind of cliched of the scenes in the movie where we've got our jerk who's he's a bit of the jock. He'd be the jock in most movies.
Chewing gum and every scene that he's in.
So Mike,
that was his choice, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, him. I think it's him and another one of the guys, not Ferdy, but the other
Greg.
guy, Greg that's in that scene. They both basically ad-libbed most of their lines. There wasn't much of a script for them to do. But yeah, the gum was completely his decision, and like he's just
He's just
literally
going for it.
chewing every scene. But I continue. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. It does feel like it's the least self-aware.
Yes. Yeah. At the same time, and I think maybe the cuts really help this, but it's not too over the top. I don't hate Mike. I don't hate Mike. And Greg seems kind of like the normal middleman, and then you have Ferdy as the big nerd, right?
Yeah.
And these are characters you see in so many movies, and you recognize them right away. You've got of course, Ferdy has his glasses.
Yeah. They try to take his glasses out from one point to she's all at him, and then he puts them back on.
He probably needs those to see.
Yeah.
Don't take his glasses. Don't do that to someone.
Yeah. It took me forever to realize what his name was. Because I was like, what are they saying? I had to look it up.
I also looked it up,
and because I was like, I guess it's short for Ferdinand, but he's only credited as Ferdy.
Yeah. I made a little note to be like, that's not a name that any person who has ever lived ever has had. That's just not. It's not a name. But I do like it as a short for Ferdinand. So that's probably it.
Yeah.
And did you find? So Mike's got his chewing gum. I found his chin very distracting throughout the early part of the movie. I don't know what it was. And like, I'm not making fun of him here. Like, the dude's just got a very strong chin line. He's got a chin and a half.
That's from chewing all that gum.
Probably. And like, I wish I had a bit of a stronger chin line, but this man is almost like Joker-esque in his chin.
Yeah.
And I found it distracting in all the scenes he was in. I just couldn't stop.
That's funny. No, that wasn't something that I noticed. I think the thing that kept distracting me the most was that I routinely forgot there was 8 of them, and I thought it was only 6. So there'd be like certain times where I was like, wait, oh no, right, yeah, there's more of them.
Yeah.
They're just multiplying. So yeah, so we meet all of them, and I agree with you what you said about him. Like, he is like a typical jock, but no one's being like bullied. Everyone seems to be
They're friends.
They're inclusive, and again, more confusion as to the age of these people. Because if they're supposed to be younger, then there probably would be more animosity within the group. Whereas if they're older, there isn't. And they all seem to be completely fine with each other. In fact, encouraging each other to have a good time. And it seems okay. So this brings us to, well, I can't remember if we meet the janitor before or after this.
So the janitor comes in a little bit. So we get the furniture store scene. Then we get Leslie and Mike and Leslie's dad, which is just that weird little 30-second scene that really comes to nothing, but it introduces us to Leslie.
It does introduce us to Leslie. She lies that she's going to a birthday party, but they're staying in the store, in the furniture store for their little party. Weird. I don't get it.
No,
but like,
you know what? It's an intro scene. It doesn't go on too long. It's fine. Sure. And then we get the pizza shop girls get changed, and they're talking about the party. They share some hairspray. It's a very 80s kind of walk to the furniture store for the party. But then we get the next technician up. And I have questions about this.
I forgot that happened already.
So the technician comes in, the second tech. Notices his buddy's not there, thinks that maybe he's just fucked off somewhere. What I want to know, though, is the robots clearly cleaned the crime scene and moved his body.
Not only moved the body, they would have had to clean up the blood, but I guess they probably have other, not vestigial, but they probably have other functions. They probably can mop a little bit or something, maybe, but they did a good job.
where was that in our sales pitch? Because if I'm one of the mall employees and I hear that these things can do janitor duties as well, I'm much more interested.
It should, because when we get to the janitor scene, I have notes about what that janitor was doing to that fucking floor.
Thank you. All right, well, yeah. So the second technician scene is very much kind of same as the first a little bit, right? He's got his book. There's a bit that they do in this scene though where he keeps looking backwards because he kind of like he can feel that there's like something
robot,
up.
Like opens up the area where it has like
it's little dart
it has
hatch.
that grappling hook thing I talked about, the Batman action figure level grappling hook that like kind of like hides it. Also, I will say that book was edited by the director. So that's why there's like shitloads of these like kind of things like top heavy, these like kind of like weird cameos and references. So he edited that book. They came from outer space. 12 movies. 12 movies that were adapted. And one of them I think is called Racer. And that's what became Death Race 2000, which is a Roger Corman classic.
Okay.
So again, it's just these weird
little callbacks.
Like,
I love that.
Things like that.
Yeah. So that bit, a long time ago, I worked as a children's librarian. And I have to say, if you ever want a bit that kills with kids like ages like 0 to 6. There is something behind you. You turn around and it disappears.
Yeah.
Is the bit to do. I used to do puppet shows, and I would come out. I
did not know this.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am. My life is richer because of it. I have to say.
I did puppet shows with kids, and I would be out front, and we had the puppet show was built into the wall, so I would open up these kind of stage doors, and I would be talking to the kids out front, and then my coworker would be in back with the puppets, and we would do this bit. We do it every time where a puppet would pop up. And, I would be telling them, guys, I don't know. Are we going to have a show today? I haven't seen any of the puppets. I'm really worried. We got to start the show. And then, of course, one of the puppets would pop up. And then the kids would be like, there, it's behind you. And I'd turn around, of course, it'd be gone. And if you ever want to see 100 preschoolers lose their minds laughing, that's the bit you do.
Yeah,
it will never not be funny.
That's amazing. I love it. So, yes. So after this right behind you bit, we get, I think this is... They go for the it's the grappling hook. It shoots the grappling hook out at the back of his head and then pulls his head back and like snaps his neck. I was really impressed with that kill. I was like, the fact that we already had like such variety between the first two, and that's like the hallmark of, and it's a very slasher-esque movie, so I'll usually just probably refer to it as the slasher. It follows the tropes. That's a hallmark of a great slasher. If the first two kills already have variety and difference in them, that I'm already in. So, so yeah, I did love that. And then I think it's after that we see our janitor, because we're getting close to the mall is closed, but the mall hasn't gotten to steel doors, seal everything in tight yet.
Yes.
So I think we get to our janitor, or are we...
So we start with the party, because we get the kind of the first of the mattress, or I guess it's a home furnishing store. They sell other things.
Yeah.
That scene where there's kind of this is where we get our first little bit of nudity from the actors and the actresses here.
This is when they're dancing?
This is this is when they're dancing.
Yeah, because this is when they're dancing. Because I remember looking at them and being like, I don't think they're dancing to the song that's playing now. I think they played some other song, which is a Roger Corman thing. He did another movie called Stripped to Kill. He was just the producer of it, but he did a movie called Stripped to Kill, and in that, the strippers all dance to popular songs that they then replace with whatever songs they could afford, and it's very obvious. So I was like, I think that's what they did. And the song that they use, where it's like street walking, that's another friggin' Roger Corman movie called Street Walking, which I did watch. I saw it. I was like, it was like a Sunday afternoon, and I was on Amazon Prime, and I was like, I will watch this trashy movie about escorts. I thank you very much. But that was funny. I hadn't caught that the other times that I've seen this movie, and then I heard that song, and I was like, oh my God, that is from Street Walking. It's literally in the title. But then they're also, dancing. They're all dancing differently from each other and clearly to a different song. Is this the same part where the two are kissing and she keeps saying hi to him? Okay, that drove me nuts because I've had that happen to me in real life.
I have too.
Why does it happen?
Well, I don't know.
I literally, because it's a joke in, I think, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, it's a joke that she keeps doing, the girl that does that too, but I literally had that happen when I was a teenager. A girl just keep doing that hi thing, and I was just like, what is happening?
My wife has done that to me more than once.
Oh my God.
More than once. And in the moment, though, all you know to say is hi, right?
Yeah.
So it happens. It happens just like that. And then they
didn't seem upset about it, though.
No,
they just went right
you know
to
what?
town.
I gotta say, this is a good point to mention because all the characters are together. Everyone's arrived. We didn't really mention Linda and Rick's arrival scene, but they were
their arrival.
So they were fixing their truck. Because they're both mechanics.
Right. Yes,
I actually
they
really
were outside. Yes,
I like that scene. I like that scene.
That actually was good because
it gave them a little bit of depth right off the bat, right? It set them up as different from the others, right? And
they're trying to trick us into them being the main character.
Yes,
because they're the most competent.
They are very much
their
the most
entire
competent.
time on screen. They're the most competent. They're always exuding the confidence. They're usually leading the charge for the most part.
Yeah, and this scene though with the party, and then you kind of get into the silliness of like the sex in different beds like across the room from each other is really weird.
Like,
that would
and
put
it's
me
not
off.
that they're near each other. I don't care about that. I think about that scene every time when I used to work retail and we sold furniture and people would come in and they would want the mattress that was on display. It's not wrapped in plastic anymore. They want the mattress on display. All I would think of is this scene. And the fact that like when the earlier scene when we introduced the guys in the furniture store and they're like, I got the beer, we got the clean sheets. Yeah. And I was like, they didn't put the clean sheets on. They didn't change anything. Two of them are having sex on a couch. The sheet is draped over the back of the couch, not on the seating part that they're fucking on. I was like, this is disgusting.
It's so gross, man. When I used to work retail, I worked at the Bay for a long time.
Oh boy.
And man, the stuff that goes down in big box stores, but just like any store like that, don't do that. Don't do that.
It is. The store I worked at mainly catered to the military. So multiple times there was guys that had been away for a long time, came back or had to move here, and they were like, well, we're going to come buy a new bed because we just moved here. And the guy would get on the bed and pretend to have sex on the bed to be like, look, oh yeah, it rocks around real good. I've witnessed that multiple times. Someone wanted to buy that mattress.
Oh, no.
I would sell it to them because I hated them, but I was like, fuck you, it's retail. Yeah. But that I think of this all the time, that it's like, think about what has happened. Even if they haven't had sex on it, other weird shits happen to display furniture. Don't buy it ever.
Yeah.
Like go with the clear conscience of finding a couch on the side of the road. You can at least, it was taken out of the house. Its memories have been wiped clean. You can at least trick yourself into that.
Yeah. And this is the part where we've got all the couples doing their coupling wherever they want. And then you've got Allison and Ferdy watching one of my favorite 50s B monster movies of all times, which is Attack of the Crab Monsters.
Which is Roger Corman.
Is it? It's also, of course. Why would I have ever thought anything different?
Yeah, but it's a Roger Corman movie. I don't know if I've seen it. Has MST3K ever done it? Because it seems like I'm kind of aware of a lot of 1950s sci-fi, but a lot of what I've seen tends to be MST3K episodes as opposed to actually sitting down to watch it alone.
I don't think so. Yeah. I've watched it on my own because it looked like fun, and it was tremendous fun.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of anything that has just like the big silly practical effects, right?
Giant
like I love
Mantis is my go-to for one that I have watched as its own because I remember there was. I don't know if you remember them. If I showed you a picture, you might remember. But in the library at my school when I was a kid, like in elementary school, they would have these books. They would have like an orange cover, and it would be like Dracula, like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, or the Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
That sounds so familiar.
And then inside, it would kind of like talk about the movie, and there'd be pictures from the movie, and they'd be like thin, like a kid's picture book, but they weren't.
Yeah, I used to get those. Yeah.
So I remember that's how I found out about Godzilla. That's how I found out about these old movies and about the giant mantis. So that's kind of like how I knew about that and went to that one. Yeah. But yeah, that's funny that you knew the crab people one. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it. But yeah, they're there watching the crab monster movie while there's like audible fucking going on behind them. Because I feel like we've already kind of scooted around to each couple, or we do soon, because we have the married couple, Linda and Rick. And Rick, they're married. They have an a automobile like garage like shop, and they're talking about how that's working out. We go over to Mike and Leslie, and Mike wants to go down on Leslie, and she's like, "Don't."
She's like, "I don't allow that," and he was like, "But last week."
Yeah, well, really last week he probably didn't have gum in his mouth when he was trying to do it, so that's at least that much, because they definitely. I think before that we're making out while he had the gum in his mouth, which is nasty as fuck. And then the other two, so the two that are on the couch, we get that really weird scene of them like starting to get busy, and she gets up and starts humming this weird song as she's taking her shirt off. And I was like, this is like from another movie. This woman's a serial killer in another movie. There was a couple times, and I think the other time was in the vent later, but there was like times where I was like, this person is just a serial killer woman from another movie. They just took a lift at a page and
oh my God, that would explain those scenes. I figured it was just a very, very loose reason to give us a full frontal for her.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think she already had to do the full frontal. I think it was her choice to do the humming. And like it's almost the it's like her version of that, because there's clearly a lot of, as we know, two of the actors were ad-libbing most of the time. I think there's a lot of just choices that actors were allowed to make while doing this movie. So I think that's what that's.
I think it's the perfect description though, because going through that, it was a little bit of the banana, except it didn't have that energy at all.
No,
it was more of
like
the like
weird,
she's got an ice
like
pick in her
humming,
bra,
she's
like
humming like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
It's the kind of thing that I expect to hear when I'm playing Phasmophobia and the ghost is coming, right? Like it's that.
Yep. But in the meantime, our Allison and Ferdy are really hitting it off. Something I can appreciate about a movie from this time, again, is there seems to be no one forcing themselves on each other. Everyone's already a couple, and the people that aren't are like having a nice time.
Yeah.
She makes the gag about, he was like, do you want some wine? She makes the gag about trying to get him drunk, and he gets all awkward, you know, and they kiss. He's like, you know, oh, we can get out of here. I can just give you a ride home, you know. So it was actually nice seeing some of that stuff, like from an era where I'm sure in the exact same year, we could find a movie that has a bunch of awful, heinous shit that they think is acceptable. So,
this
you know, that
movie,
was nice.
I thought it was incredible that I genuinely liked the 8 characters. I genuinely thought that they came across as pseudo normal-ish, believable, and just not terrible. Yeah, they were all just like, it was the kind of thing where we don't get to know them that well. But from what I saw of them, I was just like, yeah, this is a crew that seems fun.
Yeah.
Right?
And so now, finally, the thing that I have been wanting so badly to talk about, because I gagged out loud. I wanted to throw up. I had to hold my hand up over the screen, and it's not even a fucking death. It's this janitor who is another one of our Roger Corman references. Most people would recognize this guy as the snowplow driver from Gremlins.
Oh, that's where I've seen him.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Dick Miller, and he was in Gremlins and Gremlins 2, actually. So he's in both as the same character, and that's what most people recognize him from. So, and he's from A Bucket of Blood, which is from 59, and that's not a movie I've seen. But this is a kind of a reoccurring thing, I think, that has happened through other movies, is that he kind of he plays the same character from Bucket of Blood and pops up and dies or something like that. So it's another one of our Corman references. But he's a janitor in the mall, cleaning a spot on the floor that seemingly had nothing wrong with it. And then it looks way worse when he starts cleaning it, because it shows him like wringing out the mop in what I can only describe as very, very watery clam chowder.
Yes.
Is what it looks like. It looks like he's adding puke to the floor.
Yeah.
Because there's chunks. There's weird
so bad.
chunks, like cubed things that looks like a weird like chowder or something. And I was fucking gross. It was so disgusting.
Easily the most disgusting part of the film by leaps and bounds.
And someone's head explodes. Yeah. But it's the most disgusting part of the movie. I love that the other 2 janitors walk up already holding open beers. Yeah.
Also, what is this weird janitor hierarchy thing? Because this is like the one scene of bullying that is in this movie, really, is the janitors bullying the other janitor.
You have to clean up this spot on the floor. Motherfuckers, you were cleaning something else in this building 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Like... Oh, it was pretty fun. But yeah, I really focused on the fact that they walked up already with open beers. I thought was hilarious. Yeah, they bully Dick Miller and then leave. And I think it's right after that, or maybe we cut around a little bit, but it's right after that one of the protectors shows up and he tries to, everyone in the mall is supposed to have a like badge that the protectors will look at, scan. He tries to use it, doesn't work. And the protector uses like little shootout electrical charges to electrocute. Well, it knocks over the mop bucket and spills all that real corn chowder grossness. And that's what I was holding my hand up over, because I literally was like dry heaving sitting there watching it, because I was like, I can't look at this. I can't do it. And then he gets electrocuted to death. So we're up to 3, a body count of 3. And again, more variety.
Yeah. And it's another death that kind of plays into the comedy angle, because when it shoots out, I think it was the little grappling thing, because I think it also shoots like it can hold like an electric charge or something. I was never really sure about that.
Yeah, they probably use it for both. So they don't have 2 different.
But
effects,
it only shoots out like 3 feet, and it like lands in front of him, and he's just like, what do you do? Like, why?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And then it gets him, and it electrocutes him. And yeah, it was good. I like that scene. I kept thinking about the weird janitor hierarchy in this mall, though. That was kind of the thing was my takeaway there. And then we get to the scene, of course, with Mike, Mike's going down for cigarettes. This is
Oh,
our first
yeah.
of our core crew
Yes.
to bite
so
the
yeah.
dust.
So Leslie is like frantically searching for cigarettes,
Yes.
and he said, "I do love that he's like, well, there's some Marlboro Reds under the counter," and she's like, "Ugh, fuck, who cares?"
Yeah.
No, I don't think. Well, I guess somebody who has a boyfriend that she can send out on errands probably won't settle for Marlboro Reds. But like, as a person who smokes and doesn't want to, I'll smoke the damn smoke. I don't care. I used to smoke Pall Malls. Those were like the cheapest cigarette.
Oh God, yeah.
And I remember, I remember I used to work for Future Shop, which for anybody who doesn't know was like Canadian Best Buy for many years. And I would work the midnight launches for video games. And we were working the Diablo 3 midnight launch, and I was the guy who always dressed up. So I had a cape and like a devil mask, like a half like domino style, like half devil mask. And I'm outside while people are like lined up at midnight, some with their kids, just smoking cigarettes. But somebody saw me pull out the Pall Mall package, and someone was like, "Of course the devil smokes Pall Malls." So we're going to get into the first of our core people about to meet the protectors. But I think we're up for a little break.
Yes, we'll take a break, and then we will be right back with some more Chopping Mall. Hi, cultists. Nathan here to tell you a little bit about my company, Vox Crow Productions. We're a group of audio producers who would love to help you on your next project. Whether that's a commercial, an audiobook, or maybe even a podcast. Our team has backgrounds in radio, voice acting, editing, podcast production, audio for video, and much more. Check us out at voxcrow.ca for more information. And while you're there, have a peek at our other podcasts. Some of them might even let you hear more of me. Now, let's get back to the movie.
All right, we are back to talk about our main core people who are now going to start to suffer at the hands of the robots. So I think the doors, I believe, have shut now. Ferdy kept trying to take Allison home. He was like, well, in like an hour, the doors are going to shut. Oh, in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The doors are going to shut. And she kept wanting to stay. Our character here, who I'm trying to remember his name. Mike. Yes, thank you. So Mike has taken off to go find cigarettes. And it's one of those old cigarette machines. I think I've maybe seen one time in the States. I've never seen one like seen them prevalent anywhere, but they were at one time. And a couple of things about this. If he had just been a little quicker, he probably would have made it back with the cigarettes. But he's there so long thinking someone's coming. He like looks over his shoulder like 3 times. He checks like down the hallway. So
what I was curious about in this position, because the camera kind of it moves in and out, like the camera is hiding from him in one of these scenes. And I was like, is this Killbot view that we're seeing here?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I love that because several times in this movie they hide and they sneak up on people, and I love the idea of like just these robots just playing with them, just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," but like, I don't want you to see me coming.
And again, when we said that they're so loud every time they're on screen, how did it show up there without hearing the sound of it like arriving? But also when he is there at the cigarette machine, he's looked behind himself a few times. He looks at what should be his own reflection in the cigarette machine to check his hair, but I don't think it's a reflective surface. He seems to be checking his hair in its shadow, which I thought was hilarious. And then the protector shows up. We get a reference not to a Roger Corman movie, but to The Day the Earth Stood Still. Because when he shows he tries to show his badge to the robot and says Klaatu Verata Nikto or whatever, which is from Day the Earth Stood Still and predating Army of Darkness's use of it. But then he gets cornered by the robot up to a fire door, which doesn't open. Which means that OSHA's going to have some problems with this mall.
Well, we saw in the early mall montage that there were several things, right? The girl tries to put a tray down on a missing table. And so there's several things about this mall that maybe they should have spent money on before they bought the robots, right? Like, and the blast doors. This one, though, this is the start of my absolute favorite part of this movie, and that is the many times when robots corner people or come across them. and they throw their two little claws up in the air.
Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah.
You want to go,
And
bud?
honestly, it just makes them seem so joyful. They're just like, found you. And it gave them so much character for me because I every time I looked at it, I imagined the robot just being like, claws up, let's murder.
Yeah.
and going for it. And so it was great. Although this is the death that I think I like the least in the movie.
Yeah, well, we don't really see it. It's another claw death.
Yeah.
But so they shoot him with a sleeper dart, which like immediately puts him
Oh,
out.
he just did,
and
yeah.
then the claw the claw goes in at his throat, and the camera stays on it too long because we see the claw close like near his throat, but not really getting it. And it's implied that he's dead. So then Leslie, who has not gotten her nicotine fix, goes out to look for him in the mall. And then ends up finding his body, which they propped up in a different spot.
Yeah,
so
I
I
thought
guess
that
we
was an
know they're already
interesting choice.
capable of
Yeah.
moving bodies, but they propped up the body like they're Michael Myers making a tableau.
That protector got lazy though, right?
Yeah.
The other one, it was right out of sight. Like this one, he just found a little darker corner
Yeah.
to just stash him in, right?
So then Leslie finds him. His throat has been slashed, and we get a bit of blood. But then again, the protector then bursts out of that fire door that wouldn't open a minute ago with the arms up.
Yep.
And that's when it's our first instance of the lasers that they're capable of shooting. So we get the lasers with a very classic sound, which I'm sure is in like every sci-fi movie from the 80s of them shooting. And the lasers have a wildly disproportionate effect,
Yes, thank you
depending
for
on
mentioning
what
that.
or who they're shooting. Because as Leslie is screaming, being chased by the robot, and running back to the furniture store, she's hit at least once in the ass because they zoom in on her Playboy underwear, and the Playboy symbol is specifically targeted by the laser, and not much happens to her, if anything at all.
Yeah, it's not until she makes it back to the mattress store and so everyone can see this.
Oh,
that the robot turns himself up to 11 here.
Her fucking head explodes.
Yeah.
Great head explosion,
Good
by
head
the way. One of the
explosion.
best that I think I've ever seen in a movie. Because
Also-
we get a nice shot of it.
A nice shocking moment at that point too, right? Because we've seen these things kill now 4 times.
Yeah.
And we've gotten three claw deaths and an electrocution. And we saw it shoot the lasers, but the lasers didn't seem to do a whole lot.
Yep.
But then things escalate very quickly with that, right? And that's really what kicks off what I consider to be kind of the main meat of the movie, the chases and what a scene. It was a good one.
Oh yeah, great head explosion. Blood sprays onto like the glass doors of the furniture store. Everyone's screaming. And then the robots like burst through the door. Everyone like runs away. They burst through the doors. And this is when they're shooting the lasers. And again, more discrepancy of how powerful the lasers are, because sometimes they're shooting them and the couch will explode. And then sometimes it just knocks a lamp over. Yeah.
Also, that scene is so fantastic because you get Protector 1 that calls in his buddy, I think Protector 2, and they storm this thing. And all I could think about was Danny DeVito as Frank from Always Sunny in his quote. Anyway, then I started blasting because they don't aim. They don't. These robots are just having the time of their life, just blasting everything in this store. There's not a single thing I think that escapes getting at least one laser, except our kids.
Yeah. Yes. So, they managed to make it into a back room, shut the door. And again, they're shooting this metal door and it's like not blowing up.
Oh yeah,
or
it was just
they
completely.
They just stay there. So the characters then, their plan is to get up into the air duct vents and climb down to the parking garage, which is insane because eventually you're just going to hit a massive drop. I don't know what the real plan was. It's not going to just gradually go down like a hamster tube. So I don't know if it really was the best decision. They only managed to get the girls up in there. And the guys are then separated. And this is where we start getting out into the mall. We start seeing a lot of the store names that I'm like not sure if they're real. Like Licorice Pizza, Peckinpah's, the sporting goods store is not real. That's a reference to Sam Peckinpah, the director. Because as I was watching, I was like, was that a sporting goods store like at the time? But I also love because we don't have this in Canada, the very American just guns not behind a counter. They're just on an end cap rack with the bullets and shells all right next to it.
And not just your sporting guns either, right? So Greg takes a shotgun, which it's a hunting sporting goods store, sure thing. Ferdy takes a 44 revolver straight out of Dirty Harry, which he kind
makes
of
a
references.
reference to. He says he saw it 47 times or something like that, which is, I've seen Dirty Harry too many times. That's too many times to watch that movie. Despite the very amazing performance from the villain who...
he was good.
I'm forgetting his name. Andrew something, because he plays Garrick on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He's the villain in that movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Huh.
But so they get their guns. They start pulling out some of the one-liners. I think they get like a propane tank or whatever.
Yeah.
To try and fight one of the.
We get
robots.
a very nice scene of them walking out into the mall itself with going full Rambo style. Right. We've got. Was it Rick with the assault rifle, Greg with the shotgun, and Ferdy with a propane tank and a great. And I like that, you look at them and you're just like, what is the propane tank? And then they use it right away in the next scene.
And,
so
and unfortunately, to not much effect.
No
it does
effect
seem
really
like they
at
took
all.
it out, because it's like you're watching it, it's like, oh, well, this is going to be a breeze. But no, a propane explosion is not enough to take down this mall security robot.
Yeah. So it was more effective, however, than the girls' Molotovs coming up.
Yes.
Which were entirely not noticed by the killbot.
No. But yeah, so and I think during this, I think at the same time, the girls are crawling through the vent.
Yes.
And one of them starts having Susie starts having a freak out, because they're turning the robots, which I think also now have wireless access to all controls in the mall, have been turning the heat up. So the vent is like the duct they're crawling through is far too hot, and they have to get out of it. And that's what leads to them and trying to make Molotovs.
I understand where Susie is coming from here. She does come across as a little bit whiny in service to the plot, because they have to get back into the mall to move the plot along. But I would be her in that situation. I am mildly claustrophobic. Yeah. I don't like in those kind of enclosed spaces. It would be dark in there. It's lit very well in the movie, but like there'd be no lights in there at all. And they're very well lit there, but and just the fact that the heat would be on and I'd be there like in between other people. No, that's my hell. I would be turning around, like, give me the killbots. Yeah. I will take my chances. I don't want to be in this vent anymore. So.
And I have worked in malls. I refuse to believe that there isn't a back area of the mall that consists of only stairs that these robots can't get up and down. You could hide until the morning. They keep putting themselves out into the area where the robots want to be and to kill. And I'm like, no, there's like a concrete hallway and some stairs with no accessibility that you could be fine in.
Well, in Leslie's scene where her head explodes, they're all right there, like peering through the glass. And I feel like if they had just been back, they'd have been fine, right? Because the robots aren't going into the storefronts, except that they obviously know that there are humans there now. Yeah, it's one of those things that they kind of have to put themselves in jeopardy, because otherwise I feel like we just have a movie where they're like one flight up the stairs and the robots are just bumping into the
If every slasher movie had people make good decisions,
we wouldn't have slasher movies. Couldn't happen.
So they make an attempt on one of the robots, and then I think it's shortly after that they... Is it then that they do the thing with the elevator, or do they meet up with the girls first?
They meet up with the girls first, because the girls kind of come around right after that, and this is where we get Susie's death scene.
Yes.
Sorry, before that, I was going to say the girls, we get the girls in the store kind of making those Molotovs, right? They get out of the vents. Linda's got them making Molotov cocktails.
I was surprised that there was on the shelf in a mall just canisters of gasoline. I didn't know you could just buy a metal tin of gasoline in a mall.
This mall had everything. This was your one-stop shop. Assault rifles, gasoline.
I think that was a real thing
cigarettes.
At one time. It was a big mall. It was a real mall. Yeah. But I think that was real. Yeah.
So they make those. Allison gives us Chekhov's flare that she puts in her bra, and then carries with her for almost enough for me to forget that it was there. Yeah. Definitely the first time. But then that's after that, they kind of venture out, and that's when we get the boys and the girls meet up again, but for Susie's death scene, because the girls run into one of the protectors and very ineffectively throw the Molotov cocktail at it.
Yeah,
It does
because
not.
honestly, I like looked away for a second, and when I looked back, I was like, "Oh, Susie's gone." What? I had to rewind. I was like, "Oh, she burst into flames."
Yeah.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
But again, good variety of deaths.
Yeah. And I like the fire stunt too, because she runs around a little
It
bit
was an
before
effective
she.
fire stunt,
Yeah. Now the audio was a little bit off here. This was kind of the one goof that I noticed. Is you hear her screams. You hear at least 2 distinct times of her screaming after her body has stopped moving and is just a smoking corpse on the floor. So that was kind of an interesting bit. But yeah, I liked that one quite a bit.
They shelter again in another store because that's when Buddy starts to like lose it.
Yes.
And he starts to he has his little like Vietnamolog PTSD
Yeah.
scene.
Oh, also, one of the things that we may have forgotten too is in the scene where before they go into the vents, that is where we get to see the robot plastic explosives, which is just worth mentioning because it's hilarious.
I did skip over that because that was when they were originally bar themselves in the back room of the furniture store, and it's like shooting the little like
He's got a little
gum
dart, and the gum,
and then like connects the wires to it and blows the door off. Again, a crazy thing for a non-combative robot to have that you think. Nothing wrong will come from this.
What's the worst that could happen, really? But yeah, so after Susie's untimely death, we get them holed up in. I think it was it was a restaurant, right?
Oh yes, it was the pizza place because the posters
it was the pizza place again. Yeah, okay.
Because that's where Rick and is it Linda? She's like calculating how many she's calculating how much money they owe the mall for how much shit's been destroyed, as if it's their fault in any way.
We're gonna be in hock to this place for the next 85 years.
How many tune-ups is that?
2,900,431.
Maybe we should raise our rates.
Which I thought was
I like that she just assumes that this is going to fall on them somehow.
Which really says a lot about America, I think. Because I something I saw about this movie is like the kind of later critical reviews of it. And I love how it's worded. Let me just find this here. It's been subjected to film criticism for its perceived themes of human consumption and excess during the Reagan era. Which I love the perceived themes is how it's defined. Because I'm like, yeah, I don't know if they thought about that kind of thing.
So.
I feel that feels like the English high school teacher being like, the lamp is yellow because it represents their cowardice. And it's like, the lamp just might have been yellow.
Yeah,
it was the 70s when they wrote the book, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we have that of them, calculating how many oil changes or tune-ups, that's what it was. How many tune-ups do we have to do? And it was like somewhere in the
2.3 million, I think, was the rough number.
Amount of tune-ups to pay back this mall that is at this point been at fault at every turn.
Absolutely. Now, I think one place where they could maybe get charged for some damages is all of the storefront windows broken in this movie, because it happens about a half dozen times at least.
Oh yeah.
The true victim here, I think, is any kind of glass in this movie, because the number of times they do it or the protectors do it is just immense.
And this definitely comes into where just the sheer amount of like fire, explosions, glass breaking, and they're doing the deal they had was they could film at nighttime. So they're filming all of this stuff while the mall's closed, but they had to be cleaned up for the malls to open every day at 9 a.m. And they shot there for 22 days. Like all the amount of times, they probably broke glass multiple times to clean this up, but there was a head of security who was like, you're going to end up causing damage that you can't just clean up in one night. But apparently the mall owner was completely on the side of the production and told that guy to fuck off so they could finish the movie. But they do, they cause like a ridiculous amount of damage for a place that is then just going to have customers in a few hours, which is pretty funny.
So we do get to our elevator scene where they have an idea to trap a protector in the elevator.
Yeah. And this is where I got a little confused because I could have swore 2 protectors went in, but they only thought they got 1. Did 2 go in? Or
I only saw the 1 go in. I thought there was just the 1.
I thought there was like a cut like scene where it was like, 2 went in, but then it was a continuity error. But they're like, using like tubing to like use propane to have the
Yeah.
propane gas like go into the elevator.
Yeah, and I think we get kind of two scenes of that. There's a scene where they're setting it up, which is a little bit earlier. It's a little bit before Susie's death, and then they hear the girl screaming, and that's kind of what goes over there, which I just remembered that we kind of did out of order. But the main scene with it is where we learn that no one can aim except for Allison.
Yeah.
So they lure this thing in there. He gets trapped in there. They're all going up and shooting at this propane tank. There's no reason why they can't stop to aim.
Yeah.
No reason whatsoever. But they seem to all be
15 feet away.
Yeah, firing blindly at this propane tank until Allison steps up, actually takes a second and aims and shoots this. And apparently her dad was in the Navy, so there you go.
Yeah. More backstory for us.
Yeah, this is where Allison starts to kind of put herself as that main character, and the competent kind of protagonist here. This was great because that elevator. This is a 3-story mall. Mm-hmm. That elevator, I believe, is on the 2nd floor. It falls to the 1st floor and violently explodes.
Yes.
Because all the propane tanks do is just kind of break the cord on top, right?
Yeah.
Like we see the elevator fall, and then we see the explosion.
And that's why I thought all the tubes was meant to like make sure gas went inside of the
maybe
elevator so
that's
it would
it.
explode. That's what I thought they were trying to do.
That would make so much more sense.
But it also was supremely ineffective
Yes.
at killing the robot, because I think that robot survives, does it not? Or does that? Oh no,
I think that one. It's the one that they thought they killed at
the other
the
one.
first
Yeah,
shootout
the other one
that
writes
comes back.
itself.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Yeah. After they see it's robot blood, as Rick says. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. They do comment that there's robot blood.
So so we're finally down one of the 3 killbots at this point.
Yeah.
So things aren't going great for our heroes here. Shortly after that we have Greg's. We have the plan, right, to go up to the 3rd floor and shut down the computer.
Yes.
Yes. And Greg kind of freaks out. And because, well, I mean, he's very clearly traumatized because he watched his girlfriend burn to death.
Yes.
But so he freaks out, and he's running like 12 feet ahead of them. This is not like they're telling him to stop, slow down, and everything. He's like 4 strides ahead. This is not, he's not gone off on his own kind of thing. He's going very impetuously. He goes up the escalator, and we learn two kind of things here. Firstly, that the little claw arms super strong.
Yes, just very, very strong.
Again,
so I don't know if it's now or later, but one of them picks up like the propane tank and whips it at someone's head.
That's a little bit later.
Because I remember making a note of that. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. So of course the protector sneaks up on them because they're just the stealth mode on these things is ridiculous. Yeah. So he's at the top of the escalator. They're at the bottom of the escalator. He's like, the coast is clear, guys. He turns around and a protector is right up in his face. Gets
right up at his waist, I would say.
Yeah.
it's got him at belly button level.
Yeah. Staring him right in the belt. And it grabs him with a single claw and just tosses him from the 3rd floor.
Yeah, right over
and
the edge.
we get a great death scene there with poor Greg. We also learn in this little kind of chase scene that happens here that the protectors can ride escalators. Because one comes up.
Yeah, because that was a thing I kept like thinking about. Like I was like, but I guess it makes sense. People take strollers on them.
Yeah,
and stuff. I figured that would have been like something they would use as like a kryptonite for them. But I guess it makes sense. It is a move. It's moving.
Yeah.
That's a dumb thought.
That was funny. My only note there was they can use escalators with 4 exclamation points.
Like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So Buddy gets thrown over. When they were setting this stunt up, the director, Jim Wynorski, wanted to try it, but the actual stunt by the stunt actor was done from the 3rd floor. And he was like, set it up for me on the 2nd floor so I can give it a shot. And he did it. He did the stunt down onto whatever the crash bag was, broke a rib, and didn't tell anybody because he didn't want the production to shut down. So he directed the rest of the movie with a broken rib. But then I find that funny because then the fact that he didn't tell anybody, and then they made the stunt double do it from a floor higher. I mean, I guess they're trained and nothing bad happened to them, but that's funny that he was just like, well, better hide this.
Yeah.
This guy might die, but fuck it. I'll hide this. But yeah, Buddy gets thrown over. We don't actually see him land, but they do cut to him dead on the floor, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because he dies the way Marty McFly is asleep in bed in Back to the Future, which I was like, I don't think is a direct reference, but it's very similar looking.
At this point, we have the surviving gang, which is shrunk now just to 4. We've got Ferdy, Allison, Linda, and Rick here, and they now are running from the bots. They hide in what seems to be another kind of like a big box store, so like your like Sears or whatever from the day, and it's here we get some good dialogue. They kind of hunker down for a little bit because there's a shutter that they pull down, and you see the protector. The lead one, protector number one.
Yeah.
he sends the other surviving protector up to because it's a store that goes between 2 floors. So he sends the other one.
Oh yeah, because they like say it too. He starts like doing the cutting, and he's just like, go to the 3rd floor or whatever. Oh, the voice of the robot's Jim Wynorski, by the way. All those lines is the director. Yeah.
Nice. The funny part about them is, now the laser is like a cutting tool that he is cutting through the steel of the door. And at this point in the movie, the protector bots are basically Batman, right? Like whatever tool you need, they've got, right? And whatever situation.
If you did it in Arkham Asylum, then the robot has done it in this movie for sure.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of downtime here where we get a little bit of dialogue. Probably one of the all-timers that you get from Linda. I guess I'm just not used to being chased around a mall in the middle of the night by killer robots when she snaps at Ferdy. It's really, really good. But this kind of gives us a breather between all the action that we just had.
Yeah.
And then the protector finally gets through, right? They've gotta vacate. And so they go upstairs and they confront the protector that's up there, not by choice, but they very sneakily they set up a bunch of mannequins, fire at it, and then it's firing at the mannequins, and they're trying to get away.
Yeah.
But of course,
it doesn't really blow up the mannequins.
No, the mannequins get singed and knocked over a bunch because the lasers just do random stuff for the most part in this movie. But then we get kind of a double death scene that comes up here. We get Rick and we get Linda. We get Linda first.
Linda, who, and again, it's so kind of needless. Like
both of their deaths,
needless, absolutely needless.
Yeah,
because Linda stops and like turns around because Rick is still kind of in between. The protector robot is in between Rick and Linda. Linda stops and turns around and then gets shot directly in the chest. I was watching this with my girlfriend for the first time. She had not seen it, I should say. And so she was just like, why is she doing that? She's going to get shot. And it happened like within a second of that, was that she got shot in the chest. Didn't explode or leave a gaping wound or even set on fire. She just gets shot in the chest and goes down. And then Rick gets, what was that? It's some sort of little cart.
So this was the funniest. This was the funniest thing because I made a little note for this, and it was just, what was Rick's plan here? 10 out of 10 for energy, hopping into the little mall scooter. 0 out of 10 for thinking things through here, right?
Yeah,
like because at this point they
did something to the robot.
Yeah, they hit the protector, so they got it to shoot a mirror with its
that's
energy
what happened.
blast.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what happened
and so the laser rebounds and hits it, and it starts spinning around, and that's how Linda gets shot. It's spinning around. There's arcs of electricity jumping around on it, and so Linda goes down.
Yeah,
Rick. It hops in a little mall like security go-kart
like
thing.
The thing that Austin Powers like gets jammed in a hallway, like but smaller.
Yeah.
To try and like run it over, but it's like the cart's barely bigger than the robot.
Yeah.
The robot's already clearly having a time. It's dying, and again, which goes back to making Linda's death so pointless. Like they all should have just hid for a second to see what happened, but no, she gets shot. He gets in this weird little mini golf cart thing, drives into it, the electricity then goes right into him, kills him, there's a small explosion, and he dies, and then the robot continues to freak out for a little bit longer, and then dies.
Explodes, yeah.
So it's like they both went down for nothing.
No reason. So yeah, we're left then with our two Ferdy and Allison, our nerdy couple. And this point, they're looking for the control room. They decide to split up. Always a great idea. Ferdy even mentions how bad of an idea it is, but that's what happens. And so they look around. Ferdy goes through a back room that was absolutely the back room from when I worked in retail at the Bay. Just like the store mannequins, there's just shit everywhere from old promotions and stuff. And I was like, wow, yeah, like they just actually went into a back room to film these scenes. It was 100% legitimate.
There's very little that wasn't filmed at that mall. There was a couple things that were done at a studio that I think Roger Corman had, but everything else was at that mall. Yeah.
And Allison, again, I was just like, she picks up a little pipe that she finds in her own space. And I was just like, 10 out of 10 for the energy here, Allison. I don't think it's going to do anything, but absolutely, you fucking hit that robot with a pipe if you see him. And again, they get snuck up on. This is Allison gets snuck, and like this thing is right behind her, right? Like, and she's in a back room, right? This thing had to go through doors. It had to, and but it's there.
Yeah,
it's
something
there.
I regret that we haven't mentioned every time, but pretty much every time the robots have killed somebody, they say "Have a nice day" afterwards.
Yeah, it's a good bit. I really enjoyed that.
But yeah, they sneak up on it because I believe this is where Ferdy finally really gets to use his magnum, and he's like luring them away.
Yeah.
And the gun runs out, and then he classic throws the gun at the robot instead of maybe quickly running back down to that sporting goods store faster than those robots can move to reload. Yeah, there were so many guns in that sporting goods store. They could have went back and they could have literally, like true Dixie Cup generation of the 80s, they could have just unloaded with a gun, threw it away, and not even reloaded it. They could have gotten another gun. But yeah, Ferdy he lures the protectors away. Or the last protector, Protector 1. So he lures that away, throws the gun at it, is seemingly killed. And we are now...
Well,
oh, sorry.
Don't sell him short on his seeming death here, because he throws the gun and then looks around, sees a fire extinguisher, takes that, throws that at the Protectron. The Protector, unfazed by all of the things that he has done.
Oh,
however,
this is what it does.
He did the one thing that he did that is important is that he shot out its laser eye. Its laser eye goes down, so it can't just shoot lasers at him. What it can do, however, is with its little claw hand pick up the fire extinguisher.
I made a note of this
and throw it at him with the force of 1,000 screaming meteors.
Yeah,
it hits it, and he just dropped. Like it was one of my. I've seen this movie twice now, and the first time I saw it, I laughed out loud because I was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen."
It's how flimsy the arm is.
Yeah,
like
how
it's
absolute
a weird
force
little
behind it.
Skinny, like half-inch pipe that just goes wah.
Yeah, and I had forgotten about this scene in between viewings, and when I saw it again, I laughed just as hard because it might be my favorite part of the whole movie. But it just hits him with such, and he just drops, and it's so good,
like a bag of wet cement.
Yeah. And of course, Allison sees this.
Assumes he's dead,
which is a good assumption. He's bleeding from the back of his head.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. And the robot goes over to him, does its line.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
And then she gets to begin her final girl circuit for us.
And it's a good final girl circuit.
It is a good final girl circuit.
Other slasher movies that I've seen that do kind of that have this, and it's not all of them, but there's probably a 50-50 split on the final girl is usually, if they are very capable up to the point of being the last person, and that's not all of them, but the ones where the final girl is very capable up to being the last person, she then immediately turns into a complete like melting mess that just cries and crawls away from the bad guy until something falls on the bad guy. And I hate when that happens because it really takes away any kind of development or things that they've had. So the fact that she like goes full tilt in this and like, tries to hide, because we get to the pet store. The pet store is, which I absolutely loved because all those little puppies had no idea they were in a movie. There's so many. She's standing in front of a glass wall of different small little white curly haired puppies, just like, what? What's going on?
They're just freaking out.
They don't know what's going on. What are you doing? What's going on? And a good story, actually. I'm not sure where the interview is, but I've heard an interview with her that was Maroney, the main character. I'm forgetting her. Kelly Maroney, sorry. So Kelly Maroney did an interview where she talked about that, because at one point while she's being kind of stalked in the pet store, which is named, it has a trivia name here. The pet store is called Roger's Little Shop of Pets. And the original Little Shop of Horrors is a Roger Corman movie. So again, I think this is the last, at least that I can point out, of references to Roger Corman stuff. But yes, so that is that. Yep. But as she's being stalked in there, stuff is breaking, things are being shot, and she gets covered in spiders.
All of
so
the
many
creepiest
tarantulas.
pets. Oh yeah,
yeah, so many tarantulas.
Snakes.
And a snake. I loved the close-up shot of the snake, because that snake did not want to be in a movie. The snake was going in between tarantulas, and it ends up whipping one of the tarantulas with its tail, slapping it out of the way. But she gets covered in the tarantulas, and she said in an interview that the pet wrangler, the animal wrangler for that, was the man. He was the one who actually convinced her to do it, because he brought the really big one that's on her and stuff. He brought that tarantula out. He told her the tarantula's name. I don't remember what it was, but he was like, this is Sally. She's worked with these other actors and actresses, famous actors, been in other movies and been on other famous people. And that's what actually calmed her down and allowed her to do that scene, because she's got a bunch of tarantulas on it, and they're crawling up. They're
pretty
crawling
close
out
to
of
her
view,
face, yeah,
and going under her hair. And I couldn't fucking deal with that shit. I'm not that bothered by tarantulas. Yeah, completely, but she's super brave for doing
this.
That.
Was one of the most gratuitous scenes in the movie, in just that it was so wonderfully unnecessary, but I'm so glad they added it in, because the protector comes in and it just knocks over all of the very precariously placed creepy crawlies of the store, right? Doesn't accidentally let out 3 puppies that just come to her. It's 4 snakes and 3 tarantulas and stuff. But I love that as a bit.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact that only at this late hour does anyone think of actually hiding above or below their field of view, the protectors.
Yeah, because they never seem to look up or down.
I don't think they can.
Yeah.
And it almost works. It does almost work for her. She really does have a great circuit, though, because I believe it's just after that what does she do? She makes some noise in the pet store, and then she has to run again, and then she's hanging from.
Oh, yeah, because she goes and gets over the railing.
Yes.
And is hanging in between the floors.
Yeah.
And holding herself up. Though at the same time, I was like, girl, you weigh 110 pounds. You should be able to hold yourself up. She's struggling to hold herself up. Because she even has footholds. She can put her feet up and doesn't do it. She kind of does, but doesn't.
I used to do running training as well as some other kind of fitness training. And the only note that I had for this whole scene is if she reversed her grip, so she was holding overhand grip. If she reversed to underhand grip, she would have had so much more strength. Yeah. She could have held on for so much longer. And so that bothered me there. But I enjoyed all the things. She falls off of that.
It's a good tense sequence. Especially for a robot as silly as the Protector, because it kind of knows she's around. So they make it pace back and forth in front of that, where it's I'm gonna get this eventually. Yeah. It's just sort of looking around it's got its little robot hands on its hips, I'm going to figure this out eventually.
I'm going to find you. I know you're here. Yeah. Just one of those scenes that really gives them that personality that I love so much about it. So she falls onto a very convenient tent on the first floor that I think is one of those little pop-up shop tents.
It is, but when it shows what she landed on, I was like, no, your back is broken. Yeah, because she went right through the tent, and then it shows her
splayed out, right?
Yeah, splayed out, but it's there's luggage. It's luggage. It's empty luggage. It's what's underneath her, and her head and torso are on the floor, and she's just bent over, bent over a piece of luggage, her spine would have snapped. No, she didn't land in. I don't know, even just a bunch of boxes would have made more sense. Yeah. She's on top of one piece of luggage after having a 2 to 3 story fall stopped by a tent.
Yeah. Man, it's a shame Greg couldn't have got that lucky. He'd have been fine.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But then she crawls off there. So you get the sense that she is hurt in some way, but she's able to stand up when she gets into the paint store. She crawls to a paint store, then she's able to stand up. It seems like she maybe either has a broken ankle or a sprained ankle or something, but she's able to kind of walk it off, as you do when you fall 2 stories.
Yeah.
Onto luggage. And
she starts dumping paint all over the place.
She starts dumping paint. Yeah.
My first thought was, I was like, oh yeah, paint, flammable. And I was like, oh no, this is like interior house paint, not flammable.
Yeah.
But they did have a thing for that because then she dumps all the primer all over the place.
Yeah, I think it's like
which is very
turpentine
flammable
as well,
So it's
yeah.
all the paint thinner and the primer that she dumps that is flammable. The paint is to make the treads of the protector not be able to get out, so she's able to lure it in. Does she have like a final killing? Oh yes,
She sure
says,
does.
Have a nice
Hey,
day.
have a nice
and
day.
she pulls out that flare that she'd hidden in her bra all that time
Yeah.
ago and throws it in and manages to blow it up.
Honestly, all the stuff she accomplishes in the last third of the movie is made that much more impressive by the fact that she does it all with like an 8-inch road flare stuck in her bra. Like it was
Not a
it was
lot of
not
mobility
small.
there.
Yeah. So, so she lures it in there. You know, she gets her last quip in, turns the tables, and this time the fire is effective because it's an explosion. She blows up the store. And
I love though when like it shows her like because like I think there's a little shot of her kind of being thrown by the explosion, but where she's laying, like all the debris is like just below her feet.
Yes.
Like none of the debris made it as far as her. She's like, oh, you know, the classic laying down on the ground.
Yeah, and then for a final lift for this movie, Ferdy
pops
is
back
alive.
up.
Yeah,
And
he's walking down the stairs.
He's holding a toilet paper,
Yes.
a full roll of toilet paper to the back of his head that is absolutely soaking up and covered in blood. But then when he gets downstairs and they hug, he's wearing a white shirt that has no blood on it.
No. It honestly could have been a commercial for Charmin Ultra. It's just like super absorbent, right? Like Ferdy's alive, and he just shows him with the blood on the back. It's great. It's great. I was on the fence about because it's a good place to end that movie, and it is the end of the story of the robots in the mall. There was a part of me that wanted a little bit of the aftermath, just like 5 minutes, right? Of
people,
some of those people coming
showing
back,
up
being
to,
like,
I would have wanted that too. Yeah,
like owners surveying the damage to the stores, right? Like news crews trying to like interview them, kind of like the end of Die Hard, right?
Yeah.
Where you get that little bit at the end.
Yeah,
But
I agree. I think I
Would
would
have been
have
nice.
liked that as well, but I think budget constraints. I think it cost less than $1 million. I think it was $800,000 is what they had to spend on this movie. So, I
you
can
know
see
what?
that,
For
but
$800,000.
oh, they made
Great.
it work. Yeah,
Fantastic.
They really made it work. And I mean, most of that went into the robots because I guess I was in explosions and glass and other things, but they didn't have to pay that much to film in this place. But yeah, I agree. I would have liked a little bit more of that, but it is satisfying to see her succeed and destroy the final robot. Well, as we know, as far as we know, the final
far as we
robot,
know.
because we do have a stinger. After a very 80s sitcom style, we get like an image of everyone and it says their name next to them. Like during these credits, there is like a mid or end credit sequence of a fourth protector that we did not know existed, powering up and saying "Have a nice day" or something like that. So that does happen, and sets up a sequel that never happened.
No.
Really surprising because it didn't do that well in theaters, but about as well as other movies from people like this or and stuff. And I mean, other movies that made less money definitely got sequels because this is still during the era where a movie could really be revitalized by being released on video and being shown on TV. And that's what happened with Chopping Mall. It really found its audience being reshown on TV and being rented at stores. So it was a profitable movie. So I'm surprised they never made a sequel to it. It really seems like ripe for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would love to have seen like the Protector Mark II, right?
Yeah.
Like this one just has rocket launchers and machine guns built right into it, right?
I mean, they could have set it in a school. They could have set it on like Air Force One. There's so many weird things you can
100%.
do with a sequel like this.
Yeah.
But they never did. So it's a one-off. But yeah, I am still happy with where it ends triumphantly. Very Terminator-esque kind of ending.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts, watch this movie.
Watch
Even
it.
if you've sat through this entire thing listening to us break down the entire plot, you should definitely watch it. Or better yet, get my psychic message now at the beginning to not listen to the whole thing and just watch the movie before listening to the breakdown. But it's so fun. It's 78 minutes long. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I think about that. Yeah,
We have spent more time talking about it.
we have
than the
we
runtime
spent
of this
more time
movie.
talking about it than the
But
actual runtime of the movie.
I
But
hope
that just goes to show what fun it is to have.
I really hope it's come across here how much we enjoy this movie. I love it. I've said from the beginning, I love the characters. I love the robots. Everything about this movie is worth your time. It's so much fun.
It has a personality, both the characters, the robots, and the film itself. It knows what it is. And again, I did make reference that maybe that comes through more in this edit of kind of losing 20 minutes of fat. But if that's the case, then that's the case. Like,
Yeah.
I think the movie is self-aware enough that it doesn't ever try to convince us that these robots are truly scary and that they're more of a campy fun aspect. And that comes through a lot of it. You know, it's kind of it's in the vein of many other movies. It's got the aliens thing going on. It's a classic trope of you're stuck somewhere and you need to get somewhere else, but there is killer whatever in between. And I'm a sucker for those kind of movies. So yeah, it's really great. Anytime people ask me for like a movie of this ilk, it's the first one that comes to mind. It's an easy one to recommend. I think it can be watched on Amazon Prime if you have Shudder, or I think MGM. So if you have Shudder, you're already good. You can definitely watch it. If that's not the case, you can also go with Tubi. That's going to have commercials. Or you can do what I did and just watch it on YouTube. Someone hasn't taken it down yet. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know about the versions that are on Amazon or what the state of the movie is right now, but the original negative for the movie is held up in court. So they can't actually, or at least as far as I know, they can't actually release a DVD that is the theatrical looking version in widescreen. So the version that is on YouTube is from the DVD, which is a VHS rip. So it's in 4x3.
4x3. You know what, though? I think for a movie like that, 4x3, there's just something... It's appropriate.
Yeah,
it's appropriate.
It certainly didn't ruin it.
No.
I only learned that after I've watched it a few times. So I didn't...
I learned that right now when
Yeah,
you said
I didn't notice it. And as a person who collects VHS, I do notice certain movies where I'm like, this is zoomed in. This is a movie that had a lot of close-ups, even in widescreen, and it feels zoomed in. It never feels unnatural to be in 4x3. So it's certainly not a problem.
Yep.
I think that's it for us today. Definitely watch Chopping Mall. And if you're coming to us for the first time... you'll also notice that we have a couple more episodes already out. And the next one is Jaws 3D.
Check that out.
Which I would say most people wouldn't classify as an exploitation film, but I will, because they're very clearly exploiting the good name of Jaws.
Report from the front. Freddy's got to worry.
Yeah, but what if these things can read our minds?
They're gonna be awful mad when they get to me.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, join the cult today by subscribing and giving us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Help us grow the cult by sharing it with your friends, family, and that masked stranger hiding in your closet. Finally, you can connect with us on Facebook at The Video Cult or on Instagram and TikTok at video_cult666.